Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Hello everybody and welcome to round 4 of the PowerMax Super Touring Championship, powered by VRRC. Tonight we're at Oulton Park, but more about that in a second. First of all, let's introduce the commentators. One being myself, Jack Oliphant, and two alongside me is my co-commentator as ever, Dave Marshall. Dave, how the devil are you?
Yeah, doing very well, thank you, Jack. And here at Oulton Park, probably one of the tracks that I'm really eager to go and visit in real life. I haven't been there, but it's fantastic to drive on a sim, and it's looking like it's going to provide some fantastic racing.
We're going to get through all the information, but don't let me forget that you've never been to Oulton Park. That's criminal. Anyway, we'll get to ribbing you about that in a second, because we've got to explain what on earth we're watching today. If you haven't been around the Super Touring Championship, well, you've been missing out. To be honest, we're already on round 4. We've had Donington, Thruxton, and Snetterton providing some absolutely awesome action, particularly at Snetterton, to be honest. Silverstone National and Brands Hatch GP will be the remaining rounds after this one, and they are set to culminate into an absolutely brilliant finale at Brands Hatch. We've got gold class, we've got a silver class in these retro BTCC cars. If you're in the gold class or the silver class, you win the same prize. It just depends on basically what your driver rating is for VRRC. You win an OBP hydraulic pedal. You are in second place, you win 2 BTCC VIP hospitality, thanks to PowerMax. And in third, you have a Riggs Sim Race 3 chassis as well, provided by VRRC, obviously the home of fantastic sim-based equipment. Driver of the rounds, you also get a PowerMax car valeting pack. So if anybody catches our attention or anybody catches your attention at home, well, you can vote for them basically and tell us who you think deserves to win a PowerMax car valeting kit. And Dave, with all that said and done, it's a hell of a roster of prizes. But it's all up in the air in terms of the championship. It's looking very exciting.
It is in both classes as well, gold and silver, very up in the air. Jordan Brennan with a slight bigger advantage there in gold class over Mark Fletcher. Tom Dadswell and Bugner, that's a battle that saw open a little bit as well in the previous round. But meanwhile, silver class, 2 points separates Paul Zanettacci to Kyle Felvis. And I don't know whether you remember, Jack, it was exact role reversal. We had Kyle Felvis finish behind Paul Zanettacci in race 1 last time. Second race, role reversal, same finishing position, exactly the same. Then we've got Scott Thorne, who I believe isn't actually here tonight, so he's going to lose out on valuable points there to Nicky Taylor there in 4th place as well. So things are going to definitely hot up a bit here in silver class as well.
Yeah, but if we're looking a little bit further back, we're talking about the Snetterton 300, and first of all, we'll start with the gold category. Jordan Brennan taking the most amount of points, hence his championship advantage, over Mark Fletcher, who just pipped his teammate for Altitude eSports, Tom Dadswell. No surprise that those 3 are the 3 in the order of the championship as well. Driver of the round was Mark Fletcher. After driving so closely with Jordan Brennan, he really found some fantastic pace and drove very cleanly as well. If you're talking about silver category, then you're probably very interested in what's on your screen right now. Paul Zanettacci in the eye-catching green and sort of red and white Volvo. He came home first place with Carl Felvis in second, and then Nicky Taylor came home in third as well. And again, it's pretty much the order of the championship if you're discounting Scott Thorne, which will be overtaken by Nicky Taylor tonight as long as he's here. Driver of the round, as you said before, was Mark Fletcher. Now, Dave, Oulton Park is going to set up some absolutely brilliant spectacles, overtaking, ambitious moves left, right, and centre. But first of all, we've got to see how on earth they're going to get round in the quickest time possible for qualifying. And I believe we've got a video of you showing us how to do it here at Oulton.
So here we are at Oulton Park for round 4 of the Powermax Super Touring Car Championship powered by VRRC. Into turn 1, just trying to get on the power as soon as we possibly can, just keep the track limits there. On the exit, carrying all the speed down towards Cascades. Really difficult corner, really prone to losing the back end a little bit in entry, but then having understeer on the way out. So a really crucial corner, and it can make or break a lap so early on in trying to do that in one lap. Down the first gear for this hairpin just to get the diff to allow you to turn in, but then you can short shift second on exit and try and get the best traction out of the hairpin as possible. Now down towards turns 10, 11, 12, the little complex in midway in the track, turning in, trying to get across the barrier, not catch the inside curve here through the left, and then open Knickerbrook up through all the way up to the hill. Really important to get a good drive out there because you've got a bit of grade hit. Losing momentum out that corner, you will really suffer on your lap time. Now in towards turn 15, another difficult corner here, 4th gear into your car, just trying to balance. And you've got to be careful on this crest here, you've got to get that turbo kick and push your front end on the grass. And then down to turn 16, I think the lap's nearly over now, but it nearly catch you out. Just on that crest again, you feel the turbo really building on it, just pushing the front end on there. That's a lap of Oulton Park. Make sure you tune in from 7:15 on VRRC's Facebook and YouTube on Tuesday nights.
And we're back in the room as we see Paul Zanettacci flying past us going into the first corner. Qualifying has been rotating for a couple of minutes now, so we can have a quick look at what the standings are. Dave, and it's a familiar face at the top, isn't it? But it's a small margin to a newcomer. And Jordan Brennan on top, and Smith in second place.
Yeah, it looks like Jack Smith's definitely getting on a little bit better. He was previously, remember, in the BMW, will find himself in the Volvo now, the same car as Brennan, and you can see that gap is definitely closed a lot. Mark Fletcher, 4/10 back, but we've seen him a lot faster in time practice as well, so maybe just not quite putting the lap together when needed. You'll be interesting enough to see on the timing tower, there's a little S next to all the names. We're seeing all the drivers in qualifying go out on them soft tyres. Some rounds we saw drivers playing with mediums. They are holding nothing back now. They're trying to get every last ounce out the car. And I think it must be the amount of direction changes, also slightly more technical track, speeds a little bit slower. We're just seeing the drivers opting for them soft to get that absolute optimum lap time out the car.
Yeah, which is obviously going to be crucial here at Oulton Park because it's not known for being the most easy track to be overtaking on, does it? And there's a few places where you can think, oh yeah, a lovely dive down there, or potential carry the speed around the outside, but not many. And you have to be really committed, and anything you do really slows you up. So qualifying becomes extremely important. As you can see, it's not the widest track in the world, Dave, is it? It's not a Silverstone where everything's flat and everything's easy and everything's wide. It's one of the old school tracks, to be honest, and that's why a lot of people love to drive it, as Dadswell goes into third place. But racing, particularly difficult.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's a proper track. Am I allowed to say that?
I think that's fine.
I'm probably not, but yeah, for me, Oulton Park, as I said, it is on the bucket list I'm pretty sure I might get to drive it at some point this year, so we might be able to tick that bucket list off. But yeah, you can see the island layout, for me actually the slightly preferred layout, a little bit shorter than the full, and also that hairpin just provides a little bit more action a little bit earlier on into the race as well. Also a really nice overtaking opportunity there, rather than running the full extended route. Yeah, this is going to be a real change for Brennan. Someone this close to him in qualifying. It's going to be really interesting. Will it be playing a little bit of a mind game? I've seen both Jack Smith and Brennan go faster in time practice, so there is still a little bit more left on the board there. But as you said before, this track is very easy to trip each other over, and you've got Dadswell and Fletcher, who are both boys who work together. They're on the same team. And if, as I said, John Brennan and Jack Smith start to trip over each other, you might see Fletcher and Dadswell really work to get past them.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm amazed that you've never actually been able to get up to Oulton Park, to be honest. If anybody out there hasn't been able to either, you don't know what you're missing, honestly. Apart from, well, potentially Brands Hatches on par, it is quite easily the best atmosphere at a British touring car event at Oulton Park. I mean, they squeeze about 40,000 people in there, which obviously during COVID times isn't necessarily the best thing in the world, but when it's all free, done and dusted, hopefully next year, I do implore you, because British Touring Cars Oulton Park is something very special to behold. You'll absolutely love it. I've been to every single event for the touring cars, and I have to say, Oulton Park is hands down the best. It does help that I live approximately, well, I grew up 30 seconds away from the track entrance, which always helps, but it is still brilliant. Yeah, it does help. The knowledge that there's a nice hot meal and a shower about 30 seconds away always is quite nice. But it is genuinely one of the most popular places to go and watch the touring cars. People travel from ages away. So I do implore that you go. Anybody out there, that is, not just Dave, obviously.
I do have to butt in here, Jack. I've noticed Tom Dadswell is on a particularly good lap, a very quick sector 1. So if he can put the rest of his lap together, this could actually really worry the likes of Jack Smith there in second place. So let's see if Dadswell can get this last corner absolutely nailed. Crucially, get good drive. Try not to let that front end push too far on. Will it be a faster lap than before? We'll wait for the time board to show us. It is fractionally faster, but not fast enough to beat the time there of Jack Smith. So a little bit faster. And actually, for me, showing a little bit of a sign where Dadswell is maybe slightly quicker than Fletcher, his teammate. Meanwhile, Jack Smith, the first time we've seen go into the 23.3s, a very, very quick lap time indeed, and now it's Brennan's time to respond to that worry.
Yeah, I was going to say, while you were talking, oh goodness gracious, I'm not sure who's fallen through the earth then, but as you were talking about obviously Dadswell being on a quick lap, maybe going to pip Smith, Smith was obviously responding. He purpled sector 1, he went green sector 2. His sector 3 wasn't quite as quick, but realistically, actually, yeah, he probably lost about 0.2 of a second, Smith, on that last sector. I mean, you've got to look at like the likes of Scott Bugner, was 0.2 quicker than Smith on Smith's pole position lap time. So there is definitely time out there for Smith to be exploiting. And obviously Jordan Brennan, but they're both a cut above 3rd and 4th in the Altitude eSports cars with Dadswell and Fletcher. But I suppose the Altitude eSports cars, Dave, they're probably thinking that they're having their own little fight, to be honest, aren't they? With the likes of Scott Bugner, who's turned up to the party. There's a distinct difference between the top 2, the next 3, and then pretty much the rest of the field.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to remember as well, Jack Smith moved from the BMW into this front-wheel drive Volvo. He has lost his points because of the car change. So Brennan will be looking at this going, you know what? Yes, he's put it on pole, but as long as I can go with him, we don't battle too hard, it's actually not too bad of a thing for Brennan. The worrying thing is the likes of Tom Dadswell and Fletcher. This is pushing them down positions that crucially they need them higher points to crawl back on Brennan. So this has actually made it harder for the likes of Bugner, Fletcher and Dadswell, but a little bit of a safety buffer for Brennan.
Yeah, well, if we're sort of talking about the golds, we'll talk about the silvers for a second as well, because as I said, pretty much from Mick Sutton down is like an entirely different field. And you mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was on air or off air, to be honest, Dave, I've forgotten, but you mentioned that Oulton Park seems to have separated the golds from the silvers a bit more than the likes of Thuxton and Snetterton. And it is a tricky track. We've already sort of established that and spoken about it. But it does form this sort of almost properly split grid effect, which will get jumbled up in race 2 because we have a full reverse grid.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I was a little bit surprised going to Snetterton. It tends to be a little bit more of a technical track, but we actually saw the grid reasonably close at Snetterton. At Oulton Park, a little bit more technical, a lot more to the track, and we're just seeing that split between gold standard drivers and silver standard drivers a little bit bigger here. So, yeah, Mick Sutton leading the way in silver class. I know it must be very difficult for him at the moment. He is battling with COVID, so he's doing very, very well, regardless of the fact. And that was a huge moment, as we see. I believe that was Simon Thorpe maybe running wide through the double right-hander there onto the grass. I tell you what, Jack, that was actually, apart from the fact there was no bumpers and bodywork flying everywhere, that was a super realistic crash.
I was going to say, I mean, that was going through Druids, wasn't it? And I distinctly remember when my brother was in the Mercedes A-Class for Sicily Motorsport, and he went for a move around the outside in the midfield of the touring car grid. And I distinctly remember it because he was at Oulton, and me and my dad were at Silverstone racing in the Ginettas, and we were watching it on a live stream. And as soon as Tom went to try and go around the outside of someone at Druid, my dad stormed off, swearing and shouting and everything, saying, "You never go round the outside of someone at Druid." And lo and behold, he didn't even have to look at the screen to know exactly what had happened when I'd grown, because you just end up pretty much flying into that tyre wall every single time. So you need to be careful going around here. You need to be careful going around Druids particularly. It is a potential overtaking opportunity, but you have to have real racing respect and know that the other driver is not going to turn across you, run too much speed through the corner, and work with you to both safely get through. But it's a bit of a risk, to be honest, round there.
Yeah, it's probably, for me, only ever going to work if the cars in front have slowed down the car on the inside. To have the overspeed and commit round the double right, it's not one you go for unless if you're prepared to basically end up in the wall, because you've got to have 100% commitment in the driver up the inside is going to have the racing respect and leave you the room. And even then, to have the drive down towards the next corner, the final right, you're still going to be on the outside line. So honestly, the best case scenario is maybe send him the dummy, keep it open, but then always think about tucking back up the inside and getting the run, because it's not a move that works.
Yeah, and realistically, there is a move potentially into the final corner as well, but we'll talk about that a little later because we may well see it. Jack Smith can't do any more to try and gain pole position. He's crossed the checkered flag line, and he has got his final time locked in at 23.399. Jordan Brennan, as we've mentioned, less than a tenth of a second down. His first sector is not bad on time. His second sector is not bad either, but then not improvement is the crucial thing. So as he's about to come across the line, has he been able to pull out a couple of tenths from the final sector? And I don't think he has gone green in sector 3, but I don't think it's good enough. No, it isn't actually. Unfortunately, it was a tenth down on his final flying lap. So bit of a shame for Jordan Brennan, but he'll start on the front row, which I'm sure he won't mind too much about. As you mentioned before, Dave, he's going to be starting on the front row, and his championship rivals are still behind him. So that's the only thing that's really important for him. Tom Dadswell and Mark Fletcher are in third and fourth, with Scott Bugner rounding out the top 5. Luke Weston is currently the driver we're looking at, the last person to cross the finishing line. He's in 13th at the moment, and I think he's not got particularly brilliant pace over this lap either, so it may well be 13th place for Luke Weston. Everybody else has already crossed the finishing line, so if you want to have a run through the order, take a look to the left-hand side. But Dave, well, as I say that, it disappears. But Dave, you can have a chat to our pole sitter.
We can indeed, and for the first time this season, we'll go on down and have a word with Jack Smith. Obviously moved to the front-wheel drive Volvo and seem to be getting on with it a lot better, and seeing an extreme fortune of pace from yourself, getting just ahead of Brennan through time practice, constant change in between whether it was Brennan in front or yourself, but you did it when it mattered. Well done, Jack. Pole lap.
Yeah, cheers, Dave. Honestly, I don't think I could have done a better lap than that, to be fair. It was so hooked for that last sector. Druids was nearly perfect. Yeah, just honestly couldn't match it in the end. It was so close between me and Jordan. I didn't think I'd beat him just because of the experience he had with the car, and I've obviously just hopped in it for this race. But yeah, really, really happy to be on pole for this one.
Yeah, you must be indeed. Front row of the grid, battling with Brennan. I take it you're thinking, you know, you're reasonably far back in the championship, but this is yours for the win now. You're just going to keep going forward. Brennan's probably going to be thinking slightly more of the championship, and he doesn't need to get past you. So I take it you're thinking he's probably going to have a little bit more race and respect and try and work with you maybe going forward?
Yeah, I'd hope so. I wouldn't see why he wouldn't do that, but yeah, obviously we just have a good race and see what happens, you know. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to be racing at the front.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing it, and also I think this is definitely going to be a theme for the rest of the championship as well. Good luck, Jack, and fantastic job on putting it pole.
Cheers, guys.
And that was Dave Marshall chatting to our pole sitter. And I've just seen on the YouTube chat that SmartFi have put way to go, Jack, hashtag Team SmartFi. Well, if we've heard from you in the YouTube chat, why don't we all have a look at what you have to offer, SmartFi? Let's have a look at their quick advert.
At SmartFi, we do things differently. It starts with our 100% buyback guarantee. When you buy SmartFi token on the Smart Portal and hold it for a year or more, we'll buy back your token at the price you paid for any reason under the sun. You can borrow cash with our collateralized crypto loans or earn up to 13% interest on your holdings. SmartFi unleashes the true potential of cryptocurrencies. And there are so many reasons now more than ever to get involved. Join us today at smartfi.com. Grow your wealth and secure your future with simple, smart, and safe finance.
And we're back in the room, and it looks like that the cars are lining up on the grid, but we've got a couple of minutes to go before we get going here, Dave. And just to remind everyone on the format, we've obviously got two 20-minute races. This one dictated by a 15-minute qualifying, which we've already raced through. The second race, full reverse grid. That's not just silver reversed and gold reversed and gold still at the front. It's a full mix-up, isn't it? Which normally does put the cat amongst the pigeons, and we often do see some proper touring car action, essentially.
Yeah, definitely that. You know, it's the full reverse grid really means, you know, if a driver doesn't necessarily get the best of starts in race one or ends up a little bit mid-pack, it's a real opportunity for a good recovery in race two there. So not all is lost, but actually from what we found, the likes of Brennan, Bugner, Fletcher, in race two, they've actually managed to pull the way back through and still finish on the podium, even though it's been a full reverse. So I think fair play to them if they manage it at Oulton Park. Obviously, a lot tighter of a grid, and as he said before, a lot harder for overtakes. So going to be really interesting to see if Jack Smith can get a clean start here. You can see on the inside line going down towards turn one. As Brennan's a smart driver, I don't think he's going to be battling Smith too hard. He's just going to be really watching for the likes of Dadswell and Fletcher, giving a good solid lunge and possibly trying to get past him.
Yeah, potentially the biggest problem that Brennan has with Smith is not the fact that, you know, they both don't have the pace to pull away from the rest of the drivers. It's if Smith decides that if Smith decides that he wants to have a bit of a fight with Brennan and they hold each other up. That's the only real hope that I think Dadswell and Fletcher have in trying to mix it with these guys. Because I'm sure Brennan will be, as you mentioned before, quite happy just to sit behind Smith and just let them pull ahead by a tenth or two or three every single lap. Because you know Dadswell and Fletcher, as teammates, they're likely just to pull each other along and try and work their best to catch up the top two. They both will be in constant communication as well. So that's something to keep an eye out for sure. And just very quickly before we start, obviously there's a driver of the round to be considered. Everybody, get your votes in the chat once you've seen race one. Who are you looking forward to seeing? As the lights come on, the engine notes are rising, and here at the best track in the entire world, Oulton Park, we are racing, and it's a great start by Jordan Brennan, but Smith has managed to cover that inside nice and quickly. The Dadswell and Fletchers of the world have Scott Bugner for company, as Brennan just touches the back end of Smith. There's contacts and spins in the background. One driver, Mick Sutton, unfortunately, going rally crossing across the outside of the first corner as they go into Cascades for the first time. It looks like they're going to try and rub doors, but that's pretty much what we're used to seeing here in touring cars. Brennan happy to sit behind Smith, and it looks like Bugner has gotten up ahead Dadswell, but Dadswell's not having any of it, diving into the island hairpin even. He's going to have the move done and dusted as his driver looking the wrong way, and it's Ashley Beard.
Yeah, Ashley B just getting a little bit of a tap there. I was about to say, a super realistic start there for touring cars. This is fantastic racing here around Oulton Park. Bugner's going to try and go round the outside. This is a very brave move outside of Knickerbrook. Be careful not to get pushed wide. Fantastic move there by Bugner around the outside of Dadswell. And look at that, it's bunched them all up. And I tell you what, Paul Zanettacci is looking very, very racy here at the start of this Super Touring. Meanwhile, up front, Fletcher's managed to go with the front two. He's still hanging on there. Luke Weston making very, very good traction forward as well, into 10th place at the moment and closing the gap on Kenny Press. So very, very good start from the rear-wheel drive Beamer as well.
That's a tick for Scott Bugner in driver of the round votes, in my opinion. That is absolutely awesome through his lots and Knickerbrook chicane, I have to say. Jordan Brennan putting everything on the line to try and keep up with Smith here, and I'm sure we all know he's plenty capable of keeping up with him. It's more the point of pulling away from Mark Fletcher. It looks like Smith has probably got the memo and taken the guess, and then there won't be any fighting between them. Who was that? Was that Weston giving Regan a big tap up the backside through Cascades? Always a bit of a dodgy place to be doing close racing there, to be honest. It's a pretty much one-line corner as they're going into the iron chicane. That's a huge lunge. Thought he just about got the car stopped, but that was only because he made contact with Weston, or Regan, actually, who ends up looking the wrong way round.
Yeah, Phil Regan getting a similar tap to what Ashley B did in the altitude car. The BMW looked very late on the brakes there, and it was a huge dive from, I believe it was Simon Thorpe in the other Smart 5 car, getting up the inside, overrunning the corner a little bit, managing to get the cutback, but just ran it wide on exit, and that's what's lost him that advantage and that speed. It was actually Brad Smith, I believe, that got a little bit of contact going down through Cascades. So Brad Smith just ahead of Luke Weston. So Luke Weston's now dropped down to 11th place. Meanwhile, up front, this gap second to first. I tell you what, Jack Smith hasn't really dropped Brennan, but I think it's looking to me like Brennan knows Jack Smith's got the speed in the car, and I don't think he's looking particularly racy to try and push past him here. He's happy to just go with him because Fletcher is still within a second, so a little bit dangerous for behind in third place.
Yeah, it's the gap is eking out here, isn't it? But as you mentioned, it is still just about worthy of Brennan to look in his rearview mirrors maybe once a lap, isn't it? And he knows that just one simple mistake can really be the end of this. As you see, actually, Fletcher really filling the rearview mirrors there as they go into the braking zone. But as they come out of the hairpin, it's, again, just the gap extends quite nicely. Fletcher has got a really nice gap, actually, if we're talking about the gaps, between himself and Scott Bugner, who obviously was fighting with his Altitude Esports teammates of Dadswell, and they're still fighting-ish, to be honest, as well. They're still pretty much nose to tail, with Zanettacci in the mix as well. Nicky Taylor just behind them, and then Carl Felvis, only 0.4 of a second behind his silver rival. But you're talking about sort of close margins, but at Oulton Park, you need to be quite a bit closer to be thinking of any kind of move here, Dave.
You do, yeah, and I think it requires a little bit more of that racecraft. It's getting in the mirrors of that driver in front, sending the occasional dummy, making him think that you're going for moves that you have absolutely no intention of going for, but it's all about pulling speed out of the driver in front. You've seen the grid is very, very close on lap times, and it's going to take a considerable advantage on lap time to actually get moves done, as you said. So this is going to come down to a little bit of racecraft here, a little bit of know-how, and getting the car in front to move a little bit out of position. This is probably quite a nice chance here for Brennan. A little bit of overspeed out of Cascades. Will he have a cheeky look? He isn't. He's tucked in behind. That sort of language of the car is telling me he knows Jack Smith's got speed. He's going with him. And I tell you what, it's Fletcher who I think is actually on the move. I know it's not the previous lap, but the lap before that, he was actually up on both drivers by 0.3 of a lap. So very, very interesting to see. Mick Sutton getting up past Luke Weston. Mick Sutton, obviously the fastest qualifier, so we were expecting to see a significant advantage. Meanwhile, no love lost here. We've seen Felvis and Nicky Taylor trade places all the way through the Clio Cup Academy, and we've gone to here and found themselves side by side on the grid again. Nicky Taylor not giving Felvis much room here into Druids, and Nicky looks a little bit nervous on the way in, but it's a good exit, and that's going to give him a bit of breathing room down towards the last corner.
Yeah, well, I would be nervous as well if I just tried to punt off another driver who was right back up the backside of me through Druids. To be honest, there was a little bit too much paint traded there, I think, unfortunately for those two. But we're going to bypass it now as we start a new lap and hope that the rivalry continues and all being clean, as you say. But I mean, we're going to mention it all night. We've mentioned it plenty of times. At Oulton Park, you really have to force it. You really do have to sort of get your elbows out and try and make room on the track for yourself. It's not easy. It's not Silverstone. You can't just rely on the other drivers to sort of jump out the way. You're going to have to get your elbows out and do it yourself. And it's pretty much typical touring cars, as we've been seeing for the majority of the season through this field. But these two drivers, like you mentioned, we're pretty much gathering an old rivalry here, Dave, aren't we? Because in the academy and in the Super Touring, they've been pretty much stuck together. And Paul Zanettacci's been here in the Super Touring, but not so much in the Clios. It is Nicky Taylor and Felvis in both championships.
Yeah, and I tell you what, actually, this is probably where Carl Felvis is getting a little bit frustrated with Nicky. It's absolutely reasonable that Nicky is ahead of Kyle here. This is solid, good racing, and I tell you what, it's exactly what I like to see. But Felvis needs to get past Taylor to close that gap on Paul Zanettacci, because meanwhile Zanettacci is starting to pull away a little bit and he doesn't have any threat from any other driver at the moment. So Zanettacci looking like he's going to take a little bit of a role reversal again from previous round out and get race one advantage over Felvis.
Yeah, we're going to have to keep an eye on how the categories all line themselves up, but sort of for Zanettacci, he's gapping these two. He's also been gapped by the two in front, to be honest, as well. So he's not got much to really do apart from put in good laps, basically. Good, consistent qualifying laps is what Zanettacci needs to do, because if Felvis does get past Taylor, you sort of get the impression that he might be able to pull away. Or they might keep on fighting. Who knows? Dadswell and Bugner are two drivers that have kept on fighting from the very off. Bugner with a brilliant move around the outside of his locks and Knickerbrook means that he's got himself into fourth place. There's a huge 4-second gap pretty much between himself and the next Altitude eSports car. It's still very impressive as Mark Fletcher's gotten past Brennan. And I don't know how Brennan ended up going a little bit slow there. I don't think there was any kind of crash. I think Fletcher just sent it and we saw that he was getting a little bit quicker. He's done a very good job there. Oh, apparently Brennan hit tyres.
Yeah, so it came up on the server, crashed with environment, so it looks like he's hit the tyre wall, and I imagine that might be damage for Brennan. I can't imagine that car's managed to scrub off any sort of damage there. Sorry, I can't imagine it scrubbed off any damage caused by the tyres. I imagine at least the tracking's out or something like that, but what it has done is it's gave Fletcher the gap. Whether Fletcher's got the outright speed on previous lap, a tenth faster than Jack Smith, so definitely a driver still in contention here, lapping on a very similar speed and has every right to be on this podium. Very good drive from him.
I'll have to be honest, Dave, I don't know. Can you remember what the qualifying lap time was? Because I think we're about half a second off it.
It was a 23.3.
Yeah, so we're about half a second of it, aren't we, really?
Nearly a full second. Nearly a full second off, yeah.
Actually, you're right. In that last lap, you're right, absolutely, to be honest. And I think that's what's sort of coming into the advantage of Fletcher a little bit, because they're not putting in those ultimate outright pace, but maybe Fletcher's race pace is a little bit more consistent, a little bit more average than Brennan. Well, maybe not more so, but equal to is probably the more important term that we're looking for there, because really, around Oulton, you just need to be really consistent at quite a high level.
So this actually could be a little bit about tyre strategy and also setup of the car. You never know, with an aggressive setup, a soft tyre just might be able to find a little bit more potential out of the car with a very aggressive setup. But then you go to a set of medium tyres with a bigger amount of fuel on board, and it might unbalance the car quite a lot. So actually, what we might be finding here is Jack Smith and Brennan's car isn't quite as quick on a medium tyre, whereas what we're noticing is just less of a drop-off from Fletcher's soft to medium tyres. So could all be about setup and the balance of the car. So I think Fletcher, fair play, has probably got a decent race car under him.
Absolutely, as we see Dadswell, his teammate, flying around the outside of T1. It's brave, but it does give you the inside for Cascades. And to be honest, that's a point in my book for driver of the day for Dadswell as well, because that was absolutely stunning. And these two drivers really giving each other fantastic respect. Bugner trying to go for the answer around the outside of the island hairpin. We've seen Dadswell try and do that the previous 2 or 3 laps. It's not worked then. It hasn't worked for Bugner now. Those eagle-eyed viewers amongst you may well have noticed that Carl Felvis got past Nicky Taylor on that previous lap as well while we were chatting about other things. So plenty of moving, plenty of action. Very important moves as well for championship standings, especially Fletcher ahead of Brennan and potentially Felvis ahead of Taylor. Dadswell doing his best to really fight with Bugner here and try and claw back all the points that he's potentially losing, because Smith has decided to turn up to the season in a front-wheel drive car for once. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this lays up race number 2 in terms of a championship standing, where, of course, anything can happen. All bets are off. You don't know who's going to potentially get hit off halfway through. You don't know who's going to be able to carve through the cleanest. It's really going to separate the good drivers from the great drivers here today. Very much looking forward to catching it. And of course, we're only on round 4 out of the Super Touring Championship. We've got 2 more rounds to go, so you best rub your hands and get subscribed to wherever you're watching this from. Pretty much the VRRC YouTube at the moment, unfortunately. But it's going to be very exciting climax of the season, I can assure you of that. Fletcher reining in Smith just a touch. I think there's about 0.3 of a second that he's been able to pull back on the driver just in that last lap alone, Dave.
Yeah, 0.2 faster. Yeah, Brennan and Fletcher doing very similar lap times, slightly fractionally quicker than Smith, so maybe Smith's pushed his car a little bit too hard. A mistake there, I would say, by Felvis there. He's flashing the light. That doesn't really work when the driver's actually following you, Kyle there. Nicky Taylor looking very racy indeed. I think Kyle's probably going, you know what, let's go forward. I want to work with you. But I tell you what, Nicky's looking at this going, this is a great position for me to possibly get 2nd place in silver class. And I wouldn't blame Nicky here for pushing as hard as he can to get past.
I was going to say, Carl might be saying that now, but he wasn't saying that 2 laps ago when he was behind Nicky, was he? He was absolutely thinking, I need to get past. And it's all fair enough that Nicky thinks exactly the same, to be honest. So, yeah, very interesting to see the dynamics. But 4 seconds in 7 minutes, it's a big ass, to be honest, Dave. There wasn't that much of a difference in practice or qualifying, was there, between these guys and their lap times. So it's going to be a bit of a difficult one to try and catch that back up. Dadswell pulling away from Bugner by a couple of tenths of a second on that previous lap. That'll help him in his confidence. But again, just over 4 seconds to catch Jordan Brennan, as both of those drivers of Smith, all 3 of those drivers, Smith, Fletcher and Brennan, separated by about bang on 2 seconds. So keep an eye on that as we go forward. But at the moment, we're keeping an eye on the silver podium. And, well, these 3 drivers at the top end of silver, Dave, we could have given the driver of the round to pretty much these 3 every single round, couldn't we? As I think Felvis has gone wide. Does that open the door up for Taylor? No, Felvis just about gets the car stopped and turned and gets it nice and flat on the power as well. But there's proof in the, there's evidence to say that Felvis hasn't quite got the consistency hooked up here at Oulton.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's the consistency, because he seems quite good around the rest of the track. It's just the heavy braking zone into that hairpin, actually saying that there's a bounce from Felvis. So this is going to be a good drive by Nicky Taylor up through the crest towards Druids. This is going to be brave. Felvis cleverly backs out, tucks back in behind Taylor, and now the role reversal now. Taylor up into P2 as Felvis runs wide. Is this damage from Felvis's car? It seems a bit over the shop and a little bit out of character for Felvis here. Seems to struggle to get it turned in, but obviously there will be dirt on them front tyres, and that has given Nicky Taylor some really good breathing room there. There may be a little bit of pressure here. Ashley Beard getting up the inside of Brad Smith. Brad Smith's going to run wide and rejoin just in front. Good hard racing, boys. It's what we like to see. There wasn't an attempt there to get straight back past. Meanwhile, on the brakes, Ashley Beard right in the braking zone, looking like he was going to have a move there on Brad Smith, but great battles up and down this grid. I was going to say, interestingly enough, we're seeing a great speed from Jack Smith here. Obviously, he jumped into front wheel drive, put it on pole. He's now winning race 1. Touch wood, don't want to commentators curse him here, by over a second. We haven't actually seen what his racecraft is going to be like in a front wheel drive car. So this is going to be the true question. The second race, role reversal, full reverse grid. Is Jack Smith going to be able to progress through the grid as quick as the likes of Brennan? We've seen Bugner is also very good at getting through the pack. So that's going to be really interesting to see. In race 2, can Jack Smith, transfer that raw pace he's got in the car into a result in race 2 as well.
Yeah, well, that is the question, isn't it? As we've only got 4.5 minutes to go before we get that question answered, I suppose. There's a run wide there by Brad Smith. There's Ashley Beard trying to get all up the inside of him at Druids. But again, you really have to focus on the exit at Druids and get into Lodge Corner at the inside. It's a long way back to try it. But to be honest, Smith missed the apex so much that Beard was fully entitled to try and slot his car up the inside. Probably could have run a little bit more speed in there, but I don't think he was expecting Smith to run that far wide. But there's a little bit of what you were talking about before, Dave, isn't it? It's that psychological race move, where you're pretty much showing your car with no real intention to throw it up the inside. It's just to make the other driver make mistakes.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is if you're going to throw your nose up the inside like that and show your nose to make the driver move, it's important that so you don't lose out as well, that you open the corner back up. In fact, I think that was maybe an unintentional move by Ashley Beard, if I'm honest. Seemed very late on the brake, surprised himself, and actually was a bit of a fluke lunge up the inside of Brad Smith. Brad Smith didn't turn in because he saw Beard had no other option other than to go up the inside. This is going to be good racing though, very hard racing, and I'm surprised there Ashley Beard actually managed to spin that the wrong way there in a front wheel drive. I would have thought he managed to keep his foot in there and pull it round, but it was Brad Smith who actually came out of that ahead, which I think you'd agree, Jack, in a scenario like that is actually a very surprising turn of events for the driver on the outside to actually win there.
Yeah, it is a bit strange. Normally, the only other time you see them rejoin and ahead of the other driver is if they cut the second apex, they cut the left-hand side. But they didn't do it then, and they sort of got away with it. So, yeah, a bit strange, to be honest. But I'm going to give Ashley Beard credit for the move into Ireland. I don't think it was a fluke, necessarily.
Do you not? Oh.
No, I think he sort of meant it. I mean, I like to believe that he meant it anyways. I'm on your side, Ashley. Even if you are, unfortunately, dropped back a little bit too far to really upset Smith. A little bit of a gap has opened up pretty much all over the place here, Dave. And to be honest, we've been blessed in VRRC sim racing that this doesn't happen more often. In race 1, without a reverse grid and everything, this tends to be what I find when I'm commentating. Qualifying sort of dictates it all, and it all settles into a bit of a rhythm after about 15 minutes. That tends to be what happens, and it's what's happened here. Normally, though, in VRRC, it's all guns blazing, and it's all pretty much within 2/10 of each other, isn't it, normally? But you can bet race 2 is probably going to be a bit more inclined that way.
Without doubt. But I tell you what, I'm quite impressed to see so far. The grid's separated out a little bit now, but bear in mind, none of these cars are running any form of success ballast. So this is all racing, lapping almost identically without any form of ballast to slow drivers down. So, yeah, for me, the racing this has actually provided, like knowing what I know, very, very impressive indeed. Without that ballast, for the racing still to be as close, and the championships to be decided on actual pure driver speed, and for it to be as close as what it is. Was that a driver, did I see, very, very wide there? It was Kyle Felvis. Kyle Felvis dropped off turn 1 and all this contact with Kenny Press down into Cascades. And I tell you what, this is going to play right into the hands of Mick Sutton. Mick Sutton's gone through. Will the drivers suffer any more from any other drivers? Brad Smith, look, with an overspeed, Brad Smith might also get Felvis here. Felvis must have damage.
Yeah, that was a strange one, to be honest. I think he pitched wide into turn 1, didn't he? And then all of a sudden just didn't really have a chance, and very strange that he would sort of go up the inside of Kenny Press like that as well through Cascades, where they, potentially was always going to cause a little bit of contact.
You know what I think that might have been? He ran wide, very, very wide, turn 1, off sight. We only just caught it there, but I wonder whether the dirt on the tyres just caught him a little bit off guard as Brad Smith runs very, very wide. But he came down into Cascades, looked to brake at the same point that Kenny Press did, but his car just didn't scrub the speed off, and I wonder whether them dirty tyres just really gave him a bit of a shock.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a high potential that that's the case, to be honest, and it is a shame. Luckily, Kenny Press has gotten back on in pretty much the same position he was before, which is all right for him. Mick Sutton's the big gainer, to be honest, there. As we're on the final lap of the race, the front 3 have started it. By the looks of it, Jordan Brennan is caught up a little bit to Mark Fletcher, but it's more the fact they've both been dropped absolutely by Smith, who's just been absolutely flying. And the latter third of this race, he's just been putting in really consistent low times, low 24.4s, low 24.1s I've seen in the previous lap as well. Whereas Fletcher and Brennan are both putting 24.7s, so a good 0.3 of a second down, which is potentially why they're obviously a little bit further back, as we see Carl Felvis defending from Ashley Beard. And I think Felvis really is in trouble here, Dave. He can't get the car stopped, he can't get the car turned, and Ashley Beard is taking advantage on the cutback here through his lumps. How's it going to go? Fall into place. We will, of course, keep an eye on the front three who are just going around the final corner. There they are. And it's going to be Smith to take the first victory here at Oulton Park. And I believe his first victory in the Super Touring Championship in the first race he's driven in the Volvo S40. And it's a good start by Mark Fletcher as well, getting ahead of championship rival Jordan Brennan, who will not like the taste of finishing in third place. Dadswell in fourth with Scott Bugner rounding out the top five. Those two had a brilliant couple of moves against each other. Paul Zanettacci wins the silver category just ahead of Nicky Taylor. Well, I say just ahead, it's a good 5 seconds ahead of Nicky Taylor, who no longer had the problem of Carl Felvis to deal with. Mick Sutton took advantage of a late contact between Kenny Press and Carl Felvis. Kenny Press comes along in ninth place. Brad Smith looks like 10th is his deal for today. Ashley Beard ended up with 11th, only just ahead of Carl Felvis. Really good battle between those guys on the final half of the lap, but Carl Felvis will definitely be the driver who's most disappointed with this race, I imagine. Luke Weston's 13th. Regan and Thorpe round out the field.
Yeah, what fantastic racing that was. Carl Felvis looked to me like only just lost out on that 11th place coming out the last corner. So, yeah, Felvis dropping back a little bit, but this is where race 2 really comes into play. Full reverse grid. He needs to get that damage limitation back a little bit in this reverse grid. And I reckon, knowing the way Kyle drives, if he can get his head back in the game, drive like we've seen him drive in the start of this season, this race 2 could be a real strong race for him.
It could well be, but of course we'll be able to have a chat to our drivers who finished on the podium, as well as obviously a brand new race winner here in this Power Max Super Touring Championship in Mr. Smith. Then it'll be Fletcher and Brennan. But I believe, Dave, you can have a chat to these drivers.
We will indeed, and first of all we will go down our P1 in silver class. Paul Zanettacci, a fair dominant win there in the class. You must be reasonably happy with that, and thinking of the championship points as well, you know, you've got to be reasonably happy knowing, you know, you've had a good points haul there.
Yeah, absolutely ecstatic with that. I mean, that was about as good as anyone could hope for, I think. Clean start. I know a couple of the gold boys were starting to squabble a little bit in front of me. I thought, well, am I going to catch them or not? But luckily they sorted themselves out before I got to them, so they didn't cause me any issues, and yeah, just ran my race. So it's as good as I could have hoped for.
Well, fantastic racing here at Oulton Park. A really tricky track and really showing you driver class there, Paul. Good driving.
Cheers, Dave. Thank you.
Move forward on our P3 driver in the gold category. Jordan Brennan, just not quite the race you'd hoped for, but I believe it was contact with a tyre wall that hindered your progress slightly.
Yeah, the start was alright. I just wanted to take it easy behind Jack, and then yeah, I just made that mistake and clipped the tyre wall. But I don't know, them two were quicker than me anyway through in the race, so fair play to them.
Well, it's all to do again in race 2. Obviously you're a little bit further ahead on the grid than them, so let's see what you've got in race 2, and best of luck.
Cheers, thanks.
I'll move forward on our P2 driver. Mark, it was a collision with Brennan and the wall in front, but you were soon to capitalise on that, hold the advantage, and I tell you what, another great solid result from you.
Yeah, I was quite surprised. I was expecting Jordan to go left, because obviously I saw him make the mistake, so I thought he was just going to open up the corner, and then I got the radar just flashed red, and I was like, oh, he's coming into here. So yeah, I didn't actually mean to squeeze him that tight, because I thought he was going to go straight on. But yeah, you know, I will win the first race at some point during the season. I'm just waiting for when it'll be.
Well, fantastic effort there, Mark. Looking forward to seeing what you can bring in race 2.
Cheers, Dave. Thanks a lot.
And what can we say? Jack Smith, first pole position, first P1 win. Fantastic effort, a dominant win from the front. You know, Brennan was attacking at the start, but it seemed to me like you're both sort of, you know, gone with it a little bit and just working together to get away from the grid.
Yeah, he was quick at the start, that's for sure. I made a few mistakes with him in my mirrors, so yeah, it makes a change to be hunted down like that right at the front of the grid. So it's nice to be back up here. But yeah, I couldn't have done anything better in that race. That was probably one of the best races I've done in sim racing. So yeah, definitely looking forward to this next one. And it's just nice to put the Smart 5 boys near the front of the grid.
Yeah, definitely. And I was actually saying to Jack, the commentator, we've seen now the outright speed you do have in this car. This is going to be the first time we're seeing you with that sort of pace and battling into the racecraft. So how do you feel going into race 2? Is it going to play to your strengths here, or are you going to go for a bit more of a patient tactic, or just raw aggression and see if you can get another win?
Well, we'll see. I'll try and make my way through the field. It'd be nice to get 2 wins in this weekend to get the triple header there. But yeah, we'll see what happens. It's my first full reverse grid race ever, so yeah, well, it's going to be an experience for me. So hopefully it'll be a good one.
Well, it's definitely a long way back, Jack. I can tell you that much for sure. Best of luck, and see what we can do in race 2.
Cheers, guys. Let's get it.
And there we go, Jack. I mean, I tell you what. That he seems pretty keen to get this triple header. He knows he's quick here, and he knows he can do some serious damage to the championship.
Yeah, I mean, it's speaking of damage to the championship, realistically, he has upset the apple cart just a touch, because Jordan Brennan and Mark Fletcher are only separated by about 3 points, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which is pretty sensational stuff, really, because we thought that Brennan, at the beginning of the day, it was 5 points, so it doesn't sound like that big a difference, but it's more of a momentum shift, I would say, Dave, isn't it? It's more of a case of, we thought that Brennan was just going to be able to run away with it, and it may not... it may not well be the case. As Fletcher's found pace, and obviously a newcomer, not really new, but a new car in Smith coming in strong as well. So it sets things up to be rather spicy. You got about 10 seconds, Dave. What are you expecting in this one? Thorpe, Regan, Weston, and Felvis, top 4.
Weston leading into turn 1. There you go. There's
Weston.
there's my bet.
From third place.
Yeah, regarding further back, though, honestly, I think keep an eye on Bugner. He's a driver who, for me, is quite a good driver in racecraft, the same as Nicky Taylor. I reckon he'll make some good places forward here.
Well, I can't wait to see how your prediction of third place leading into turn 1 at Oulton Park is going to go, but we don't have long to wait, to be honest, because the engine notes are rising. The lights are coming on, and for the second and final time this evening here at Oulton Park, we are away in the Power Max Super Touring, and I can't believe it, but Luke Weston is going to lead into turn 1 from third position. That is quite simply the most remarkable thing I've ever seen. Did you turn his boost up? Anyway, Bill Regan falls down the order. He's down to the 5th already as Carl Felvis gets up to 2nd place, but just about keeping ahead of the Smart 5 driver of Simon Thorpe. Here goes Brad Smith as well ahead. Well, just behind of Beard. Apologies, getting them a little bit mixed up there. But Luke Weston is leading. Carl Felvis, Simon Thorpe, Ashley Beard, and Smith at the top 5 as they dive into the hairpin for the first time. And there's huge contact in the background. One of them, I think, Phil Regan's on the outside, but I can't quite see actually who's. I think Sutton's gone down. Dadswell as well, and Fletcher down in 13th position as well. Nicky Taylor's in 8th place, but Scott Bugner, again, like you predicted, somehow is up to 7th.
Yeah, so Scott Bugner. It's a huge moment there through the chicane. How the world did he hold up? But actually, it's Brennan who was actually going with Bugner. So this is a good position for Brennan to be in. Meanwhile, Kyle Felvis battling hard with Luke Weston here. This is where Luke Weston, he needs to bear this in mind side by side through Druids in a rear-wheel drive. He is a brave man. Fair play, Luke Weston. Down towards the last corner. Will he give this corner up? Otherwise, he's going to lose quite an advantage here. Simon Thorpe actually looking very, very racy as well indeed.
He is indeed, as he's looking very interesting. To be honest, Weston's going to have to be slightly careful about coming back across here as he looks at the inside of Felvis, but he doesn't even get the opportunity because here comes Simon Thorpe, who forces Weston really far off the line. I'm not sure if he made contact with the tyres, but rejoining is going to be a bit dodgy. He comes back on, luckily facing in the right direction, because that could have been really dangerous. Otherwise, it could have been spearing across the track, and we've seen that in multiple British Touring Car Championships, and in fact the Mini Challenge as well, getting really dangerous across there. There's Ashley Beard looking at the inside, and there's contact, and that's going to be a huge off on Ashley Beard as well. And Kenny Press has decided to just go really slowly and make sure he avoids all the action, I'm guessing. Brad Smith, Luke Weston, and Kenny Press all involved.
Yeah, that was a huge mix-up there. That looked to me like a car on the grass, and who's this going to make it 3 wide nearly? Is that Jack Smith battling super hard with Taylor? There's contact between Beard, and I tell you what, Jack Smith could have the inside line. That's very brave, boys. Nicky Taylor might have the run up the hill. I tell you what, race 2 is proven all of the action is right here.
I can't believe it. Did Smith say as well in his interview that he's never done a reverse grid race? Because there's a bit of baptism of fire, to be honest, here, isn't it? I mean, I can't believe it with the speed and the experience that he's got. But very much looking forward to seeing how he gets on with the rest of this race. Things, I was about to say, are just about calming down. But as we see a little bit further forward into Lodge, that's absolute codswallop. Dadswell up the inside of Phil Regan. Zanettacci trying to spot an opportunity to carve his way through. He'll know that his championship rival, Carl Felvis, has gone well. But Beard comes into the pit lane, and is that a potential penalty for him as he comes in and has to serve a drive-through? Dadswell in 8th place, just holding off Regan and Zanettacci, Mick Sutton. But as I was going back to the silver category, Dave, Zanettacci, his rival, although had a bad race in race 1, did Carl Felvis, he's going very well at the moment in race 2.
Yeah, definitely indeed. Carl Felvis currently with the lead. Who's that that's gone off? Simon Thorpe, I believe that was. Was that a slight push? Hard to tell from here, but nothing on the surface saying there was any form of contact. Luckily, managing to get straight back out into the grid where there's relatively clear air, and unfortunately that's the BMW Elite Western with a slight spin. Kenny Press has found himself in a bit of trouble again at the hairpin. I tell you what, this hasn't really been the progress for me that Paul Zanettacci would have probably wanted, seeing Kyle Felvis all the way up there in first place.
I think we're going to have to upgrade the storage of the Google Drive with the amount of race incidents that are going to be reported after this one. It looks like there's plenty of action, isn't there, unfortunately? Well, we like to see action. We like to see it clean, though. And that's... Well, we mentioned... to be fair, we mentioned in the first race, Dave, around Oulton Park, you pretty much have to force your way through, don't you? There's no waiting for someone to go a half an inch off the racing apex or anything like that. If you see a mistake, you need to try and take advantage of it. You need to try and make sure that the other person is punished for their mistake, essentially. It's a bit of a cutthroat track, and it suits some people, it doesn't suit others. And unfortunately, not everybody sort of realises that and potentially tries to defend the position that's maybe not defendable, as that's a huge slide by Bugner, and that's going to allow Brennan to maybe have a crack at this one. Brennan, who didn't win race 1 and was probably very much disappointed with how he finished in 3rd place, he's already up to 2nd, and his rival Smith, new rival, is down in 4th, but more importantly, about 4 seconds away.
Yeah, so his biggest rival is actually Fletcher, currently in 5th place. So you've got to remember that regarding the championship, only 3 or 4 points now separate Brennan to Fletcher. So these are crucial points Brennan has to crawl to open that advantage back again. He now probably knows the championship isn't going to be quite as easy as maybe what he thought a few rounds ago. So this is actually absolutely crucial, as I said, for Brennan to bag these points when they are on offer. Meanwhile, Fletcher is stuck behind Smith. And I tell you what, these drivers I think are going to have a hard battle. The likes of Smith, Fletcher, for them to catch up to the likes of Kyle Felvis. Kyle is doing a great job here out front.
He is, but the gap is coming down, isn't it, with Jordan Brennan now in the hot seat in 2nd place. I think Fletcher won't mind one bit, although one driver who will mind is Thorpe, because he's looking the wrong way as another driver flies off the circuit.
Smith?
And is that Brad Smith? It is Brad Smith. Brad Smith and Thorpe. That's a very weird place to be coming... Oh, it's not a weird place to be coming off. It's a weird way of coming off, to be honest, I would say there, Dave. I'm not entirely sure what happened as Brennan gets past Felvis, and I'm not sure where Felvis is. There he is, off the outside of Cascades, and absolutely no idea how. I can only assume it was self-inflicted, Dave, because there was about a 2nd gap between himself and Brennan. I can't imagine why Felvis would have been lunged there from that far back. It's not in Brennan's repertoire. He doesn't tend to do that sort of thing. So I can only imagine it was self-inflicted.
Yeah, yet again, nothing on the server suggesting there was anything to do with contact there. So maybe Felvis just getting slightly wider sideways, maybe. But needless to say, Felvis still in a very good position to score crucial points ahead of Zanettacci. So the championship is definitely still very much on the table here, as long as Felvis just keeps his cool a little bit, brings that car home, doesn't need to make any more positions. Just hold your position, bring it home, and move on to the next round, and hopefully have a slightly better one.
Well, what's the damage on the car? That's the crucial thing. Was there any damage on the car? And going on the outside of Cascades, there doesn't tend to be any tyre damage. Tyre wall or anything like that. It's if you get spat over to the other side of the circuit when you're in real trouble. So fingers crossed he hasn't got any damage, to be honest. As Dadswell is lining up a move on Kyle Felvis' title rival, Nicky Taylor, and that will help Kyle. He'll be glad about that, even if he does have Dadswell chasing him down now for the rest of this race. 12.5 minutes. He'll just be glad that Taylor has been knocked down one more peg away from him. And to be honest, he'll be also hoping that his championship rival Zanettacci comes along and they start fighting as well. But it's not going the way Felvis was wanting anymore, Dave, is it? Because obviously he had a poor finishing race one anyway. And he was in the race lead, and Zanettacci was all the way down in 8th place. It's an awful lot of points that he was hauling back, and it may not well be the case here. Oh, especially if he does that. Oh, that's a huge off by Carl Felvis going into his laps. And I'm not sure if he touched the grass on the outside into braking, but the rear end just snapped away from him. And he ends up spearing into the tyres. That's a driver's worst nightmare in real life. And I'm sure it's probably a driver's worst nightmare in the sim world as well. But we were just saying about how his second race isn't going the way he was wanting. It's got an awful lot worse.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to say it now. There's something to me doesn't ring right with that. I think there must be either a fault with the car or maybe actually a fault with Felvis's actual sim hardware, because he's definitely not driving like we know he first of all can, but also the way that car spat right there, very, very uncharacteristic. So I think there's something going on other than the driver just controlling it there. So very, very, very strange. Needless to say, Zanettacci will have seen that. Very, very lucky not to actually get caught up in that as well. So yeah, very, very difficult there. And in fact, I think that's actually Felvis pulling into the pit. So not what we want to see there at all. Meanwhile, Brennan up in front, doing the damage here for the championship, leading by over 1.5 seconds now. But also, Jack Smith has got that within a second now to Bugner. So very, very good fight there. As we see, Kenny Press all over the back of Luke Weston there in the BMW. So this is a bit of a battle here for 11th and 12th place.
Yeah, there's another thing I think as well, potentially with Carl, because obviously our broadcaster, Tommy Fowler, who's been speaking to him in the week a little bit, is saying that Carl didn't seem quite at home with the car and the track combination. And to be honest, even though I've been in that situation where you're sort of in the top 2 in the championship, and you have all the momentum and you have all the confidence in the world at all the tracks par 1, and it just didn't seem to really click. I mean, I had the same in the G55, and I was going to Croft, a circuit that I should be able to get under my belt quite quickly, but I just had something sticking with it, and I couldn't get the hang of it. Didn't quite have the confidence. As Press looks up the inside of Weston, it's a bit of an odd move as he basically invents a whole new track, decides he doesn't want to take the second apex, he wants to invent his own, and unfortunately Oulton Park bit back at him there and didn't quite go to his advantage. But it's true, Dave, sometimes there's just something blocking you and the rhythm, and it just doesn't quite click with you, and potentially that's what Carl Felvis has fallen victim to here today at Oulton Park. Just didn't quite ever have the confidence in the car on this track, and it just didn't really sit well with him.
Yeah, for me, it's, you know, you feel the most relaxed when you find the flow of a track. Once you find the flow, it almost comes natural, and you can sort of just find time by just repetition of the track. And for me, I absolutely love Croft, and it's very much a case, if you try and overdrive it as a circuit, you end up pushing it too wide in tower, or you run Sunny in too fast, meaning it sacrifices your exit. Very much about a bit of patience, a bit of flow. It's the same with Oulton Park. It's a very technical track, and if you try overdriving this, you end up actually doing more damage than good. So maybe it's just the fact he hasn't quite managed to settle into it, as you said, find the flow, but it still had some very uncharacteristic moments there from Kyle. So it'd be interesting to find out whether it was just the car not quite performing the way he wanted it to. But that's one of the things. It's an open setup here in this championship, and it can be very, very hard. You can go down one of them tunnels, and I'm sure you know very well what I mean here, Jack. You do a few clicks too many ways, you unsettle the car, you can't find back to where you were.
Oh yeah,
it can be a very, very hard challenge indeed.
It's so painful as well. It's very disillusioning as well, too. And you spend hours on a car and it just keeps getting worse. Press up the inside of Luke Weston into turn 1. Again, coming out of the brake a little bit. Coming out of the throttle and onto the brake a little early there for Press. But to be fair, he's maybe learning from mistakes that happened earlier in the race, Dave, because we saw a lot of contact between everybody and Kenny Press. Not to say that it was any of Kenny Press's fault. I'm just saying that it maybe just happened that way and he just doesn't want it to happen again, sort of thing. So he's being a little bit more cautious here. As we see Zanettacci and Nicky Taylor now fighting, safe in the knowledge that their championship rival, Carl Felvis, is in the pit lane and will not be finishing this race. But Nicky Taylor has a point to prove, Dave. He wants to get back in this title fight. He was about 30 points down as they went into Oulton Park. And I think he's had a pretty good race 1, and he came second in class in race 1, currently first in class in race 2, so he's very keen to try and claw back those points.
Yes, this is actually a huge point haul for Taylor here in first place of class, and this is going to bring him right into contention of the overall championship for the silver class. So really quite a damaging round here. Meanwhile, up front, what was that we saw there? Was that Bugner and Jack Smith starting to battle? And that's actually meant Smith has maybe tripped over slightly. And look at this, Fletcher, exactly what was seen before, top championship driver. They're just to pick up any pieces of a driver that might make a mistake. And this is what really dominates championships.
It does indeed, as they've all closed up quite nicely. But Jordan Brennan has checked out somewhat, hasn't he? He's really pulled away and is pulling away strong here. Bugner doing very well, but of course, we were 6 minutes to go. We've forgotten to mention it again, apart from the beginning of race 1, pretty much. Driver of the day, Dave. And this is about that time where we need to start thinking about it. Again, for me, there's a point in the good books for Bugner and Dadswell for the way that they fought in race number 1. Fletcher obviously getting ahead of Brennan, but it was Brennan's mistake. But having said that, we're just looking at Fletcher going up the inside of Smith. A really nice move, a little bit of contact there, maybe door to door as they go through the corner, but both drivers giving each other enough room to get through the corner. That's crucial, and they come out of it at about level as well, going towards the first corner now. It's hard on the brakes for Old Hall, and Fletcher does seem to have that position, but again, doesn't run Smith out too wide, allowing Smith to get back up the inside of him, going into Cascades. It's going to be very difficult to see anybody coming out of this in front apart from Smith. Going through, and in fact it is. He's got his full car ahead as Fletcher juts back to the outside into the island hairpin, which is going to be difficult to outbrake him, but it's a fake, and he goes for the inside. No, he doesn't. He's trying those cheeky moves to try and offset Smith, but these two, it has worked just a touch, but these two really going at it, Dave.
Yeah, so that exactly there was what I was on about. Fletcher, very, very smart driver. Shown his nose there. Look again, shown his nose, making the driver in front. In fact, he's actually clipped the wall there. Fletcher clipped the wall. He needs to make sure that that car is still going to drive its way back home. He cannot afford to lose championship points. But unfortunately, that for me is going to be the end of the battle between Fletcher and Smith there. That was such smart driving until that point, sending the dummy, making Smith look in his mirror, maybe putting him slightly offline and losing a bit of time. It's exactly what Fletcher needed to do.
Yeah, and going back to our conversation about driver of the round, to be honest, because it's so easy to get caught up in those sort of battles, and all of a sudden it's the end of the race. So, going back, I mean, to be honest, I personally have a vote for Bugner. It's a huge look at the inside there by Zanettacci, but I don't think that it was ever really on. My opinion, Bugner doing a very strong job. I mean, everybody might say Smith has gone from 15th to 3rd. Brennan's gone from 12th to 1st or whatever it was. Bugner's done the same sort of thing, to be honest. He's fought his way through. He's a second and a half clear of race 1 winner Smith. He's, I wouldn't say within touching distance of Brennan, but he's doing a good job of slightly keeping his lap times honest. Some really good driving and battling in race 1 with Dadswell as well. I would say for me, Bugner's up there.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, another driver that I think has to be up there as well, Nicky Taylor. For all not probably the fastest outright on lap time, I tell you what, he's done a great defensive drive here from Paul Zanettacci, and he had a really good race 1 as well. So a good drive for me from Nicky Taylor. It's shown a strong effort there. So that's good to see. Yeah, really difficult for driver of the day, and I'll be really
I would say as well. Sorry, Dave, just to interrupt, because I've just seen in the YouTube chat, Smith, to be fair, and I was thinking, well, Smith, yeah, he won race 1. He's the quickest out there. We don't tend to give it to that sort of person. But it's his first time in a front-wheel drive car.
Yep. Yeah.
It's his first meet, and he's won his first race in that car.
Smith has definitely got to be on the table for driver of the day. For me, you're right. Bugner, Smith, Nicky Taylor, a really good defensive drive. Moments like that there was enough room given to Paul Zanettacci up the inside, but he put his car where he knew any sort of contact and it would just bounce him sideways, not take him off the track. So very, very smart driving there by Taylor for me. Mick Sutton has also got to be up there as well, because he's driving with Corbin and doing a stellar job there in 10th place as well. But for me, get comment on the Facebook and YouTube. We'll be looking at that massively, because we need a decision made here.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Kempton and Annie Puller in the YouTube chat have said both Jack Smith. Sean Bugner, unsurprisingly, has voted for Scott Bugner. Dave Kempton, Jack won the race as well, and he absolutely has, sort of thing. I think, to be fair, we'll let our gods to be as well, Tom O'Farrell and Rich as well, have a little vote as well in the Discord, as we normally do. But you need to be voting in at the moment. If you're talking about YouTube votes, Jack Smith's winning, so we obviously take that into account as well. We will keep an eye on it. Elaine Gibson as well, Jack Smith for driver of the round, or driver of the day even. So, yes, Tom O'Farrell. We've already got one more vote for Jack Smith as well. So I think it looks like it may well be going to Jack.
Yeah, and honestly, it's not just a voting system. Obviously, you know, if we get a massive fan club all voting for one driver, we can't just award it if his driver doesn't deserve it. This is purely a fact of, yes, it's been brought to our attention. Jack Smith should definitely be awarded for a Driver of the Day award, and we agree. He's done an absolutely stellar drive here at the moment, bringing it home in P3. There it is, the Smart 5 car through the hairpin, just driving within himself. His first race out in this front-wheel drive car. He's pulled it, brought home a victory in race 1, put Brennan under pressure in race 1, made him try to deliver. It was a mistake by Brennan. He brought home the win. And then, meanwhile, in race 2, he's in a podium spot. As you can see from his car, it is very, very clean. So he clearly had a very clean start as well, driving within himself. So fair play, Jack Smith. A Driver of the Day award is coming your way.
Yeah, but obviously we tend not to give it 2 weeks in a row, or even in the same championship if we can help it as well. So Scott Bugner, with the way he's performing today, and Nicky Taylor, the way he's improved today as well, they'll be strong contenders going forward as well. As we mentioned, Mark Fletcher got it last week for the great improvement. Smith has got it this week for the great improvement as well that we've seen in them. So again, we love to see drivers really fulfilling their potential as they go through a championship. It's awesome to see. Jordan Brennan's crossed the line with about 9 seconds to go. As the timer ticks down to 0 now, the white flag is out. We will be on the final lap of the race. Jordan Brennan his race 1 didn't go his way, Dave. But to be honest, after winning race 2 and his championship rival Fletcher down in 4th, you'd probably be coming out of this evening saying it's not a bad result for him this week.
I don't think that's a bad result for him at all. I've just noticed Jack Smith actually has taken away fastest lap of the race, so he's lost a point there. He did have the fastest lap at one stage over Fletcher, but I tell you what, out of all the tracks we've seen, as I'm currently looking at the battle on screen as well, Zanettacci looking very, very racy with Taylor on screen. The lap times, this is how close it is. So you've got Fletcher's best lap at 24 flat. You've got Jordan Brennan on a 23.966 and Jack Smith on a 23.952. So you've got 3 drivers within half a tenth. I mean, phenomenally close racing around here. Really close.
It is absolutely madness. But we've got to focus on a race winner for the time being. Well, before we look forward to the next couple of rounds, it's Jordan Brennan taking that victory here at Oulton Park. The one he probably felt like he maybe wasn't going to get tonight after the competition reared its ugly head in the form of Jack Smith and Mark Fletcher. But Scott Bugner comes across the line in 2nd place. Out of all those superstars, it is Bugner who interrupts that podium. Smith in 3rd, Fletcher in 4th. Dadswell as Altitude Esports come 4th and 5th. Nicky Taylor wins the silver category in 6th position, with Paul Zanettacci coming across the line in 7th after a late surge to try and get that silver victory. They'll both be pretty happy, though, with the way that Felvis has ended this race. Regan in 8th place with Mick Sutton in 9th. Ashley Beard comes home to round out the top 10. Now I think we have Luke Weston, who once upon a time did lead this race into turn 1 from 3rd position. If anybody remembers that long ago, absolutely miraculous call by Dave. Kenny Press will be 12th, and I think Brad Smith will pretty much be confirmed to be 13th position. Carl Felvis and Thorpe, 14th and 15th, both didn't finish. But we've been so quick getting these drivers into the interview round. Before we even get to the point of everybody crossing the line, Dave, we can already have a talk to our drivers on the podium.
Yeah, we can indeed. And first of all, we'll go down to our P1 finisher in class, silver driver Nicky Taylor. A phenomenal effort tonight. You were definitely in the running for one of the Driver of the Day awards there. I mean, you've got to be reasonably happy there. A really good point haul. Obviously, you never like to see a rival or a competitor struggle. Felvis obviously dropping back has really brought you into contention here in this silver title.
Yeah, to be fair, I'm not overly sure on how to set up the Super Touring car yet, but I'm getting there, slowly and gradually. I've figured out how to make the car rotate this week, which is the main goal we've had, and a P1 and a P3, I think it is, in the first in race was very good. And then, for the first 3 laps, I was like, all right, let's just try and make up as many positions as possible. And then when I saw Kyle was leading, I was like, whoa, how's he got up there? But then, I just got back and then was just trying to defend for my life from Paul, because I know I'm not that quick and my tyres were slowly dying. So, just happy to come home in 5th, to be fair.
So, I'm going to quickly ask you, is this a side of Nicky to come? 2 rounds left in the Super Touring. Are we going to see a fight for this title?
Hopefully. I would be happy with P3, but hopefully we can get the wins going now in the class and just get the hang of the car. But hopefully I should be there or thereabouts now.
Well done, Nicky. Obviously, certain progress in this car at the moment. We'll look forward to seeing what you can do next round out.
Thanks very much, Dave. I
will move forward on our P3 finisher. I mean, also driver of the round, Jack Smith. What a drive here tonight. I mean, what else can you say? You tried to make the triple header, as you said before, but it was a really clean start. Brennan, Bugner just got through the pack a little bit sooner, but you certainly kept the pressure on them as well.
Yeah, no, honestly, that was pretty intense. Can we do that again? It was quite fun from the back. It was really good. I'm really happy with the podium. That battle with Mark towards the end was pretty sketchy. Trying to go around the too wide down the hill at the start of the lap. That was something that. But I'm actually really happy with the podium and a win here today. So and driver of the round as well. I'll take that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think all that's left to be said is, Jack, welcome to the championship. Like, the racing that's going to happen from here on out, you know, you've got the speed in the car, you've got the race awareness. You saw the battle with Mark. I think this is definitely a thing for things to come. 2 rounds left. We cannot wait to see what you can bring.
Yeah, I cannot wait to drive it. It's going to be amazing. Let's get it.
Well, thanks, Jack, for tonight, and we'll move forward on to next round.
Cheers, guys.
I will move forward on our P2 finisher, Scott Bugner, bringing the Primera home in 2nd place. A few very sideways moments seen on screen. Never a one for a dull moment, and always a spectacle to watch. Yet again, must be happy with that tonight. A very good points haul there from yourself.
Yeah, I'm really happy with 2nd. Still a bit sideways. I can't quite sort of conquer the setup at the minute, but it's definitely getting there. I'll probably get it a bit too late. I'll probably get it at the last round. But I really enjoyed that. It was just sort of, they were just falling away like flies in front of me. There was just carnage, and I was just trying to get through. And yeah, it was good. I think Jordan gave me a nice love tap going into Knickerbrook on the first lap. That warmed up my tyres for me, and that's what got me through the pack, I think.
Well, nothing like a little helping hand there. Well done, Scott, tonight on bringing the Primera home. And you're right in what you say. I definitely think you're finding little bits here and there with that Primera, and it's looking like a better and better race car each round. So let's hope we can maybe get a win next round out.
Thank you very much. Can I just give a little shout out to my son who's watching on YouTube? He doesn't normally watch, but he has said that he's watching. So hello, Harvey. Hope you're okay.
Well, there you go. A podium as well while he's watching. You must be proud, Scott.
I hope so.
Well, fantastic racing. And we'll move on to our P1 driver, Jordan Brennan. You needed that win, didn't you? You needed to get that bit of security back there after a difficult race one. Yeah, you must be happy.
Yeah, it was a good race. That yeah, I gave Scott a nice tap into the chicane. I just thought break myself going in, which wasn't fun. But yeah, it all just sort of happened. Everyone just sort of fell off the track in front of me. I'm not sure what happened to Kyle though. It looked like, I don't know, it kind of looked like he had a hardware issue or something. He just sort of fell off the track a few times.
Yeah, so interesting enough, we picked up on that as well, and I said exactly the same thing. The way the car reacted and suddenly turned, it looked like a hardwire issue, like you say, where maybe the input or whatever isn't correlating with what he's actually doing. Whether that's right or wrong, that's the way it looked to me as well. I've got to ask, when you're thinking about the championship, you've obviously got 2 rounds left. It must be playing on your mind a little bit at this point. How hard is it to go into race 2 and see the amount of action happening in front of you and deciding how hard to push or defend from the places behind? It must be really difficult.
Yeah, race 1 I was thinking more about the championship, and I don't know. I think I just sort of got in my head a little bit, and then that's when I was making mistakes. And that race 2, I just thought, I'll just go for it and see what happens.
Yeah.
And it kind of works.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing more of that sort of action. Good luck next time out.
Yes, thank you.
And there we go, Jack. 3 podium sitters, obviously Nicky Taylor as well. I mean, the driving round Oulton Park tonight, your local track, your favourite, has not disappointed.
It absolutely hasn't, no. And by the sounds of it, these guys have really enjoyed it as well. I think it was Jack Smith talking about his fight with Fletcher, really getting very close with each other, and hopefully that continues going to Silverstone and Brands Hatch. But more about that in a couple of minutes' time. Look at that championship. Brennan has extended. It was at 3 points going into race 2. Now it's 10 points. So Brennan, again, we started to doubt him. We shouldn't have done that, should we, David? To be honest, it's really pulling strong now. Dadswell, a fair old way behind in 13th place, but to be honest, he's got a new rival for 3rd, and I think he'll be fully aware of it. Scott Bugner's come to play, hasn't he? He's really pushed back.
Yeah, he has indeed. And you know what? I think we're in for a real finish towards the end of this season. This is not going to be done and dusted. You've seen how many points are on the table. Kyle's lost 1 race there, and look at the gap it's opened up. So it isn't going to take much. All it'll take is a little bit of a role reversal or a bit of bad luck here and there, which we don't hope for. But it leaves this championship still wide open until we go to the last round.
You're absolutely right. And just quickly touching on it for the Silver Championship, you mentioned obviously Carl having a bit of a gap to Paul Zanettacci, who still leads this championship, but it was 2 points, I think, going into this round. It's now a lot bigger than that, 43. Sorry, not 43, 23 points, apologies. If it was 43, we'd pretty much be giving Zanettacci the title, I think. Felvis in 2nd place, Nicky Taylor, again, coming back strong, 109 points now, and I think that's about 13 points down on Carl Felvis, with my quick maths in my head. Phil Regan and Scott Thorne as well, and that top 5 battle getting nice and close together. So plenty to keep an eye out as we go forward through the championship. And speaking of going forward, we have to have a look at what's to come on VRRC. Obviously, the Super Touring, December the 7th, Silverstone National. Be very entertaining. And there we go, the advertisement board up on your screen at the moment with the lovely shot of the Altitude eSports car. I think that's at Snetterton, to be fair, but we will be going to Silverstone, obviously. It's going to be very exciting. Plenty of overtaking opportunities. There's only really 4 corners at Silverstone, so plenty of opportunities to really dive up the inside in front of the BRDC through Luffield and Brooklands. But, of course, if you're wondering what's going on tomorrow, boom, on your screen. Wednesday, the 1st of December, at 7:20. Round 5 of the Academy Clio Cup at Thruxton. The Academy, if anything, is closer than what you're seeing tonight, which is quite remarkable to be said, to be fair. Plenty of drivers who have been joining us tonight are also included in the Academy, and they're pretty much the same drivers who are giving us the drama tonight as well. So very much looking forward to covering that one tomorrow. But Dave, before we jump off, there's also all these things that are going on, aren't there?
The R&D, that one was sprung upon you a little bit there, but also
I've never seen this one before.
I do notice we've also got the main man himself of VRRC in here in the chat with us now. Rich Hayden, I'm sure you're going to want to help promote the mini challenge eSports, which is coming up very shortly, and sign-ups are still open for it.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. We've got season 3 of the very popular. By the way, if it sounds as if I'm a little bit short of breath, I'm doing some laps. So, we've got the very popular season 3 coming up of the mini challenge. Starts 16th of December on Thursday evening. So really looking forward to that. Sign up is open at the moment. Got some great prizes. Top prizes are a share of a test day in a Mini Cooper, real world Mini Cooper race car, so that's pretty exciting. But we've got some, lots of sim equipment as well to go on with the prizes as well. So really looking forward for that. And the best way to get involved is just join our Discord or drop us an email at simracing@virtualrealityracingclub.com.
And there you go, Jack. Just like that, drop of the hammer, and exactly what we need to say. So I'll let you go on to sign out now of the broadcast. But yeah, final thoughts for me. Oulton Park hasn't disappointed, and the championship's still wide open. So exactly what I wanted to see.
You're absolutely bang on the money there, and looking forward to tomorrow, the Clio Cup as well. It always warms us up nicely, this Super Touring, for what's to come tomorrow. So if you're interested in catching the Clio Cup, then by all means subscribe or like or follow or whatever you want to do on any of the channels you've been watching this today. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Right, Oulton Park, it's been an absolute blast, but of course we've got to move on. My name has been Jack Oliphant. I've been joined alongside me as ever by Dave Marshall, and Tom O'Farrell has been on the broadcast giving us an absolutely sensational job, as he always does. Thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure being your host this evening, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Academy Clio Cup. Good night.
Between the two of them. The inside of coats. Parker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Woo!